So right here next to me is Elise with the horns. She's got horns because she was from our first season of kids and we weren't very great with the disc budding. As a result, she's lovely to us but a bit of a bully to the other goats, so sometimes a little bit of a loner. And she also doesn't fit in the head bales of the dairy, but she knows her spot. She goes right to the end and the others get locked in behind her, so she stands nice and patiently for milking and then normally turns around to have a cuddle. Next to her we've got B-Girl, so she's from our second year of kidding and she's a real sweetheart, really like her. And then these two smaller ones, they're maidens, it's their first year of kidding. They're twin sisters, this is Lilo and this is Stitch. So these two girls are different colours because in the grandparents' lineage there was a British Alpine cross. So the white goats are the Saanens and the black and white ones are British Alpines. And somewhere along the lines in the grandparents there was a cross. So while both the parents are white Saanen goats, sometimes they do throw a bit of colour, hence Stitch, black and white. Most commercial farms would milk twice a day, but that's really up to them. There are some that would even milk 3 times a day. So we milk the goats once a day, which is all we need for our purposes. We're only milking to feed the young stock, the kids, and then once the kids are weaned or have gone off to their new homes, then we freeze a heap of the milk for the soap. So once a day is plenty, and then the girls have the rest of the day to do as they please. One of the great things about milking goats is that they don't mess in the dairy, so they don't wee or poo when they're in the dairy. And I mean, to be honest, even if they did, it looks like little chocolate-covered raisins. So you don't get dirty, which is great. So pretty much I'll milk the goats in whatever I'm planning on wearing for the rest of the day. And other than getting a little bit of hair on me, I'm still clean and lovely at the end of it. Yeah? We've got Whiskey's morning breakfast in here, which is the horse food, but the goats love the gum nut pellets that we give the horses. So if you've ever got a goat that's a bit hard to win over, horse treats work a treat. Stitch here was quite shy and standoffish before we brought her into milk this year, and I've won her over big time. So at the fence here is Peanut. Peanut's a wether, so a desexed male goat, and he lives with the girls at the moment just to keep them company. He's worked out that there's food in the dairy, so we try not to let him come all the way in. He also loves the horse food. Hi, Peanut. Come on, girls. This is Whiskey, my baby. He was born on Boxing Day last year. He's now a bit over 10 months old and growing like a weed, a bit of a spunk. I've never had a young horse before, and it's a big responsibility, big time commitment, but he's coming along really well, and I'm learning lots in the process. Hello. Hello. We're going to do some work today, aren't we? When we moved onto the farm, this dairy was already here, but the pit was full of dirt and rubble, and they were kind of just using it as a shed. None of this steel work was here. It was just an empty shell. It used to be a cow dairy. When we got our herd up and running, Shane and I actually built this dairy. This was our third iteration of milking the goats, but it turned out really well, fits the purpose, and we milk with a portable milking machine, so we don't have a big vat and vacuum pump and all of that. This little machine does all the work for us because it takes a really long time to milk a goat by hand. We put the feed for the goats in the trough just here, which is actually made from some old guttering. So goat pellets go in there. The goats walk in, they all know their spots, they pop their heads through the holes, and then this slides over and gets locked in there. to keep them in place while they're being milked. Completely pain-free, they're all comfortable and they know the drill, and they love to come in and get their breakfast in the morning. At the moment we're only milking about 4 to 6 goats a season because that's all we need for our milk requirements on the farm. But a few years ago when we were breeding and building our herd up to sell the young stock, I think we were milking almost 40 goats a day. And this setup worked really well for that, but it obviously took a lot longer. It took about an hour to get everyone through. And those were some big days and late nights. Milking goats is just pretty much the same as milking cows. You've got all different types of fit-outs of dairies. Some cows are milked on big rotary dairies, same with goats, or swingovers or herringbone dairies. This would have probably been a swingover dairy at one point, and now it's set up just to have a single side, and we can milk up to 8 at a time, or bring in up to 8 at a time. To have a couple of goats for home for your own milk production, you don't necessarily need a big dairy fit out like what we've got here. You can have a small little portable stand that the goats pop up onto, lock their heads in the same way to keep them nice and still. You can even milk them by hand if you want. It is much quicker with a machine though. All the milk is used on farm here at Windella Farm. Initially we'll use it to feed the kids while they're young until they're weaned, and then once they're all weaned we freeze the milk for use in our goat's milk soap products, which is what we sell in our business. When you use milk in soap, you like it to be really nice and cold, which works great because we've got 4 big deep freezers that we fill full of milk before we dry the girls off that each season. And then we've got plenty of milk stored and ready for soap making for the year to come. Lots of people ask whether we drink the milk that we produce, and yes, of course we do. For some reason people think goat's milk must be a bit gross, but actually it tastes pretty much the same as cow's milk, maybe a little bit less creamy and much easier to digest for most people. Usually at milking time we'll always get at least one of the cats in here. Jazz, the farm cat, is the biggest fan of the dairy. She knows when that milking machine's on and she's normally here waiting for the milk. Or when we've got kids to feed, she'll be waiting in the kidding pens ready to get her share in there. The goats produce about 2 to 4 litres per day. Some of them are bigger producers than others, but usually as the years go on and they've had more seasons of producing milk, they'll produce more each season. Our highest producing animal would be B-Girl. I think she's producing 3 to 4 litres a day at the moment, whereas Lilo and Stitch, the maidens, they're probably about half that. When we started breeding the goats, we decided to name them in line with the year. So our first season of kids were all named A names, hence Elise. She's the oldest kid on this farm. Well, she's not a kid anymore. Then the next year was all the names started with B. So B-Girl is from that year. We also had names like Beyonce, Beatrice. With dairy operations, one of the main problems is you always end up with surplus male stock, which in our case is the buck kids. You only need so many boys on a farm, and so dairy operations are always faced with the challenge of what to do with surplus male stock. For us, it was a really easy decision. We wanted to make sure that every animal bred on the farm had a fulfilling life and a purpose, and so all of our buck kids get donated to the local petting zoo. So they get disbudded and weathered and donated to the petting zoo in Bendigo, and we stay in touch with those guys and often see our little babies at events and markets that we go to. They get to live a really charmed life, going to children's birthday parties and fairs and markets, getting lots of cuddles, and then they get rehomed as pets once they get a bit bigger. So if you're interested in small hobby farming, a tree change or life on the land in Australia, like and subscribe for lots of great new content. See ya!